Well, hey there, everybody, and welcome to AMC Jedi Council here on AMC. We are so glad you're here joining us today, talking Star Wars all the time. My name is John Campia. I'm the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, and I'm really excited to be sitting here talking with you guys today. Joining me, first of all, in the room with me, sitting to my immediate right, he is AMC's own Mr. Kristian Harloff. Kristian, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. Can't wait to talk about more rumors and news and everything going on with Star Wars.
And also joining us all the way from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, he is a former director of Lucas Online. He is the co-founder of Red 5 Comics, Mr. Paul Enns. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I seem to be your dark side to your light side today.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're just hello to all of you guys also who are watching us on the live stream right now. Hey guys, I'm going to let you know that near the end of the episode today, when we get to the last half of the show, we're going to dedicate the last part to just taking your comments and questions via Twitter. So if you're watching us live, yeah, that's the wrong one. There's the one we want. You can tweet your questions to us with the hashtag AMC Jedi Council. So once again, tweet with the hashtag AMC Jedi Council. Kristian over here is going to be keeping an eye on the whole board thing there, and we're going to be getting to your questions as we get to the end of it. So, you know, this show's a lot more laid back than the other ones we normally do. So, Kristian, let's start with you. What's the first thing we should talk about today?
I mean, if we were just talking about before, again, Paul and I were discussing it, and then we talked last week about what movie spin-offs we'd want to see. Now, you had made the point that a lot of times when these rumors come out, you kind of take them a big grain of salt. But apparently, I guess Hasbro is doing the toys for Star Wars.
Yep.
So there was a meeting, and apparently they had the slate of what was coming out in the next couple of years, and whether it was intentional or not, it looks like the movies, if we assume this report is true, Boba Fett, Han Solo, young Han Solo, and a Red 5 movie. Now, the two that we mentioned right off the bat are ones that we all speculated would be the ones that were going to happen anyway, with Solo and Fett. But this Red 5 one is the one making me go, huh, because it's supposed to, if going by this report, it's supposed to come out after Episode 9. So is it a Luke story? I mean, Red 5?
Well, okay. Well, let's first things first.
Yeah.
I don't think this report's true.
Okay.
That doesn't mean elements of it can't be true, but I mean, it's like we've all been speculating. Everybody has been speculating that the spin-offs will be Boba Fett. We got to have a Han Solo story.
Right.
Yoda's been another one that everybody's been talking about, which makes a lot of sense. So I have no doubt a couple of these are real, but I mean, anybody could predict those ones. Okay, but let's go on the assumption for a second that it is real. Okay.
Yeah.
Red 5. I doubt it's a Luke story because, I mean, those are, you know, they're all flying into battle. They all have their designations, Red 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm sure that if one pilot goes down, another pilot flies, they assume, now I'm Red 4, or I'm, you know, Red whatever. So I'm going to guess it's probably a legacy thing. Either somebody else who was Red 5 before Luke, or
Like Dread Pirate Roberts type thing?
Yes, much like a Dread Pirate Roberts situation. That's exactly the perfect analogy, as a matter of fact. Something like that. And you know, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Red 5 becomes the title for what we commonly know as, you know, the various adventures of Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
Now, Paul, I recognize this term Red 5. Where else have I heard this before?
Well, you may have heard it in the intro. For a few years now, I've owned a company called Red 5 Comics. So obviously, the stock in my company, now's the time to invest. If you think that there's going to be a Red 5 movie, and you know, I'm booking the seats now. Bigger Comic-Con booths.
Sue Lucasfilm. Sue them if this is true.
That's right. I'll sue them. Obviously, you know, I've had a lot of experience with this title for all these years I've been at conventions, and I always suss out the level of geek someone is when they say Red 5 Comics and they say, oh, is that a Star Wars reference? And about a third of the people get it and 2/3 don't. I'd be surprised if Disney wanted to bank something, bank the title of their film on something as obscure as Red 5 and requiring that knowledge. The other thing is, you know, Red 5 could very easily be a Blue Harvest. It could very easily be, you know what, let's use a Star Wars-y sounding name, but it could easily mean something just in that era. It could mean something not even in that era, and they just like to call it that. Hasbro definitely, in the past, has spilled the beans on spoilers and taken some brunts from that. They may well just be trying to cover their tracks. I don't know, but all the ideas we sounded cool too as well. I just think that Luke era Red 5, that was whiny Luke. No one liked whiny Luke.
Right.
I can't see 120 minutes of that guy.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that you assume by episode 9. I think Luke will die in episode 9, or maybe be a Force ghost by the end of it. Who knows? But you would assume that his story, for the most part, would be wrapped up. To go back again and see more of him just as a pilot without like the Force element, does anybody really want to see that movie?
Well, and
if that's the movie,
the other question that it raises is, when could this story have happened? Because the only absolute possible time a Red 5 that involved Luke story could happen is in between episodes 4 and 5.
Right.
That's the only conceivable time, because there's nothing there's just no time for that to happen. He's not flying with Rogue Squadron in between 5 and 6. He wasn't with the Alliance before Star Wars A New Hope.
Right.
So that's the only time. So really, how much time is there between those two stories when we end up picking up the story on Hoth?
Yeah.
I just can't see them doing a Luke story.
Yeah, and there's
point.
going to be so much that happens. You would again, if we're assuming that it comes out after episode 9, we're looking at like 2020 or along those lines of when that movie would be released. So there's going to be so much that has happened, not only in the movie universe, but in the Rebels universe and in the book universe now, which will all be canon at that point, in video games. So who knows what kind of significance Red 5 will have by the time we get there. I mean, we're looking at a long time from now.
Paul, what do you think?
Oh, I'm just excited for my company, but I'm with you. I think Rebels is going to cover, like, assuming Rebels runs 5 or 6 seasons, that era is going to be so mined, and not even that era, but the idea of the non-Force using pilot, the idea of all the things that come along with the Rogue Squadron that we all know and love, I think is going to be well mined at that point. I would think they would want to break new ground.
It's just a story about Biggs.
Lovely Porkins poster online.
The Porkins movie. We all need a Porkins movie. Yeah. All right. So what else was going on? Well, here's another topic for us to banty about. I don't know. This is just something I read that somebody tweeted to me and whatever, and I'm not sure the veracity of it, but it's worth bringing up. There are some rumors going around right now that a decision has been made that Disney is going to release the original unsullied versions of New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi in Blu-ray. Now, up until this point, we've had several incarnations of Blu-rays, none of which have been like the original cuts of the film.
No!
So, Paul, let me start with you. Do you think there's any validity to this rumor? And then beyond that, if it is true, is this something you think is a good idea? Like, what are you thinking?
Well, the trouble is that not everyone agrees on what the original cut is. So, for example, the original cut of Episode 4, should it even have A New Hope in the crawl? Because it didn't when it first came out in theaters. Right. It was changed in 78, it was changed in 79, it was changed so many times. So which is the original cut is always the debate. Few people forget that it actually, Lucasfilm put it out on DVD as bonus extras. They just re-released the Laserdisc Master. But the trouble is, with the special edition and the Laserdisc Master, the special edition was so much more than just adding Jabba and adding digital X-Wings. It was cleaning up so many shots and digitally restoring so many shots. I think if Disney goes ahead with this, they need to give it, some of their treatment that they've given some of their own titles, like their Snow Whites and that kind of thing. They need to go back and like remaster this thing, obviously, probably in 4K, things like that, because we've had a few releases like this. So I'm excited. I think they're leaving money on the table if they don't. It's something that George didn't ever really want. He kind of did it. So I believe that they will do this at some point. I don't think the general public cares as much as we think they do. So I'm not sure how much money there is in it, but it sounds plausible to me.
What about you, Kristian?
I think, well, what Paul said is right. He nailed it, I think, because it's a question of what is the original cut. And I totally agree with him that they would have to go, if they do, they have to go back and retool it. But if we are going with what we all want the original cut to be is just the stuff like Han shooting first and Vader not screaming no and stuff of that nature. But what it actually, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record here too, but I want to. It starts to make me think about canon as well too, because if you go back and you change Boba Fett's voice back to what he was, he's no longer the actor's voice from the Clone War, the Attack of the Clones and Clone Wars anymore. So does that lend the belief of the fact people were saying, oh well, Boba Fett might actually kill that clone and take up the mantle, like because another different Mandalorian, that's who this is. Is that the way that they would, explain it?
Right.
So it does do a lot of head scratching if they do that, because is that now the canon version, or is the special edition ones now? Was Vader whining and screaming, or did he just pick up the Emperor and toss him down the thing? It's like, so it's a lot of new questions.
I think, look, a lot of the Star Wars purists, like those of us on this show, I know I'll speak for myself here. I have bemoaned a lot of the special edition stuff. I mean, the Jabba music video scene.
Oh man.
Anyway, I'm just going to stick to like the original trilogy. But Paul brings up a great point that I don't think a lot of us ever stop and consider. There's good stuff done in what they did with the special editions. The cleaning up of a lot of those effects. Yeah. The film just looked better. I mean, it's just...
I was just saying, even in Empire, like I think Empire, out of all the three special editions, actually it worked the best, because I love when they're walking through Cloud City and you get to see Cloud City in the background. That's pretty cool. Yeah, like that stuff wasn't really in there.
The expansion of Mos Eisley.
Yeah, like stuff like that. It's just when they start messing with the story. Like I'd like to have Obi-Wan's original scream in there instead of that like the drunk NASCAR racer, what it is now. It's like woo in the beginning when he calls off the Sand People. So that would be nice to have changed back. But yeah, there are some things that actually served it well.
Paul, what are some things that stand out to you that you would think, hey, if they are doing this back to the original, whatever we define original as, these are some things from the special editions I would like them to keep. What are some things that would come to your mind?
Well, one of the things that leaps to my mind the most is Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back, and partially because that's partially my fault. We were actually on set for episode 2, and I actually slipped to Rick McCallum. I'm like, you know what? What if we recorded Ian doing these lines? Wouldn't that be good for some time? So I always have a little bit of pride with that one. But no, there's that. There is oh boy, I've lost them. Obviously the Anakin at the end being Hayden means a whole different theology, if you will, for how the whole Force Ghost things work, because why would he be 21 when they change it? There may well be even story points to that in the new films that they have to, do they put the old Anakin back or new Anakin in, may affect the storytelling for continuity. So I think none of us are going to be happy until we can all have our choose your own adventure, where there's a whole bunch of check boxes at the start, and none of us will watch it the same way. And I think actually that would be the ultimate thing, is if you can check off and say, I like this new song and this new effects, but no Praxis explosion of the Death Star or something like that, right?
Well, the Force Ghost point is great, because especially now if you're going off to the Clone Wars, during Yoda's thing, he had to train to learn how to become the Force Ghost, learning from Qui-Gon and how that all went down. So Anakin dies and he's just like, well, I have the highest midichlorian count, so I can just do it. It's just what? It's like, the fact that he can just appear, like if you had to, I don't know. It's just, there's something to be said as far as how he did it.
All right. Well, now I'm going to take us off on a rabbit trail here, because you just made me think of something.
Yeah.
I totally accept, although I think it was a mistake, that Clone Wars is officially canon. Lucasfilm's come out, they put it in the official statement, it's canon now, and I think that's a mistake. I'm not a big fan of Clone Wars. Don't get me wrong, there's bits and chunks of Clone Wars that I really got into and I liked, but overall as a whole, I know I'm in the minority here. I was not a big fan of Clone Wars, and they do re-reference, especially in those episodes you're talking about with Yoda, getting into the last few episodes of season 6. We do get re-reference to the midichlorians. Now, the midichlorians are already canon because they're in the prequels, so they're canon. But I'm gonna put this out there: just because something is canon doesn't mean you're not free to ignore it.
Right.
I mean, just JJ. and you know, we all know JJ is sitting, you know, overseas right now on set of Star Wars, watching us talk about this.
Where do you think he gets his ideas?
He needs our guidance. Right, yes, exactly. But JJ, oh my God, if you're listening to this, please, dear heavens, just ignore the midichlorians, or I don't know, or maybe come up with a great way to fix this jarbled mess that kind of introduced.
You know what's funny about that too is that, and if anybody watches Far, Far Away or listens to it, they're probably sick of me talking about it. But the Darth Plagueis novel, they actually made midichlorians not cool, but they made them acceptable the way that he explained it, the way they were manipulated. It almost felt like an X-Men type of thing, the way that they made it work. But it was still kind of, like you were saying, John, in the background. Like it was there. We know because it was introduced. It was like the author, James Luceno, had to do it because George Lucas put it in there. But he did it in a way like, don't worry, I know this is stupid, but I'm still going to make it as cool as I can.
Don't worry, I know this is stupid.
Yeah, but I'm going to make it as cool as I can. And I think that, I do think that it'll pretty much be ignored in the new ones.
What do you think, Paul? What do you think they're going to do?
Oh, I think JJ's going to ignore midichlorians completely. You know, he's a purist on the 4, 5, and 6 front, and he's all about the mysterious force, as best I can tell. So, yeah, I think we're going to escape that one.
Okay.
As well as Jar Jar cameos, I think we're going to avoid that.
The Gungans die within 2 minutes.
That reminds me again. Look, so I'm watching because I'm a Star Wars nut. I'm watching season 6 of Clone Wars on Netflix, and I'm watching them. Okay, I'm getting close to the end. And it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
they brought back Jar Jar. It's like you need to do whatever you can do to make us forget about this.
That's George, though. That was George, because again, he was in a lot of the meetings during the almost all of them, from what I hear, during the writers' meetings for the Clone Wars, and the writers would throw pitches, and he'd be like, "Oh, they don't like Jar Jar? Oh, yeah, throw Jar Jar in there." Like he did that,
and just to rub it in, let's have him hanging out with Mace Windu.
That episode, I agree with you. I really, it took everything in my power not to fast forward through them, but I was glad once they were over because we got into the good stuff.
Right. Okay. Well, I want to move into another topic here that actually Paul brought up to me in an email, and I think it's a fascinating question. And Paul, why don't you raise it up? The question about keeping leaks under wraps today, in today's day and age.
Right. So this is obviously something that fascinated me, having started, you know, being one of the co-founders of the ForceNet, which was, we were all about, you know, stealing news and breaking news, and back in the early internet, back in '97. And then, you know, being on set and being at Lucasfilm, obviously dealing with spoilers and fans was something that was in my heart for that day and age as well, during the 2000s.
And let me throw in a story here, Paul, because I can't remember how long we had known each other when this all happened, but I remember this so clearly because you guys, when you were over, one of the guys running Force.net, you were the first guys to get your hands on an audio clip of the sound of Jar Jar Binks. And it was the clip of Jar Jar in the sub saying, water in here, monster out there. Oh, no. When are we supposed to? You know, there was that whole sound clip, and it got everybody in a fury. And I remember you and me talking, saying, yeah, we had to take a call with Lucasfilm. Just before you go into, just tell that story a little bit, because I love this.
Well, yeah, I mean, you told most of it there, but obviously, you know, none of us had any idea what Jar Jar was going to be, other than that he was going to be a CG character, and that was kind of cool, and that was new, and all of a sudden, we had established a few relationships with some people who had clearly been on set and knew what they were doing, and you know, we eventually got, and this is the days before YouTube and sharing video. I mean, getting these WAV files to us was cloak and dagger in and of itself, and I don't think I'm supposed to go into exactly how we got all this stuff.
That's fine. That's fine.
I got it, but anyway, we got WAV files that we decided, because of some of the other non-Jar Jar ones, were legit, and so, you know, we just put it out there. And obviously, back at the time, you'll remember all the controversy about the racism aspects, and was he a step and fetch it type character, and then, but also, how does this shrieking idiot fit with the Star Wars we know, right? And I think that was honestly the first sign that we got in fandom that maybe these films weren't going to be what we were hoping they were going to be. And it was really distressing to a lot of people. And obviously, that night I think it was the second time we got a call from Lucasfilm themselves. And it was just, it wasn't a chat. It was, you will take these down now. They did give us, you know, some olive branches that we will talk to you tomorrow and next week, but, you know, these things will be down. And it was kind of the beginning of the end in a way for people's opinions about episode 1, but it also was a watershed moment just in terms of the spy aspect of it.
Right.
The thing before that was we actually got a copy of the script, which ended up actually being real. So we had both these audio clips and this script of the movie. And what was interesting back then was, of course, someone had to photocopy it and FedEx it to us. That's how we had to get this script.
Wow.
But what occurs to me, you know, and when I was, you know, when we were doing the prequels, there were no smartphones. I mean, you could take a picture with your phone, but they were they're crappy, and you had to text, you know, using numbers, and it was that era of. Right now, I guess what's interesting to me is
you're making us sound old, Paul. Back in my day.
But if you think about it now, every single person has a smartphone. There's no way they can ban smartphones from set.
Right.
There's no way they can ban smartphones from Hasbro meetings. There's no way they can, you know, someone can tweet this stuff, live tweet a meeting that they were in. Like, you know, you could be in a design meeting with JJ, and there could be, you know, some guy in the corner, innocuously live tweeting this thing. And it's just a matter of, I'm curious as to what the impact is going to be to spoilers. And I guess I throw it out to you guys. Do you think, you know, JJ's notorious for control, but do you think that with Star Wars being so valuable in popularity, can he keep it under wraps in an era of smartphones?
I mean,
No.
yeah, not the way that he may want to, but he's going to do better than most.
Yes, he will.
And I think
Yeah.
one of the things, again, we don't know, and what he's done so brilliantly is when stuff does get quote unquote leaked, you don't know if it was planned leaked at this point because it's
Yeah.
done in the strategy. Like, look at, for example, what just happened, I don't know, 3-4 days ago when it looked like everyone's like, oh, they're filming because they saw the slate, you know, of
Yeah.
episode 7. And the other question is, I guess somebody, because like you said, Paul, the internet today, someone really looked into that and they had the Google settings on as far as locations, and then they realized that was filmed in Abu Dhabi. So the question is, did they mean to let people know that, or did they just forget to turn off the Google settings? You know, it's because Abu Dhabi's been rumored for a long time, and the other question is that now, will that serve as Tatooine?
Yeah, and I think the whole thing you have to keep in mind here too is exactly what Paul's brought up now. Like, we've had Twitter for a while now. We've had, you know, Facebook for a while now. We've had smartphones for a while now. But it feels like every week exponentially. I love following tech. I get home from the studio every day, and the first thing I do is I sit down and watch my daily tech podcasts, and then I go on with work and things like that. But it's every single week. Exponentially, we are seeing leaps and bounds from bandwidth to the capability of the smartphones. Because now it's not just taking a picture and emailing it out to somebody, putting up on Twitter. You can now literally, with the way they have their compression now, you can take your smartphone in your lap and you can do a 1080p video stream live to YouTube as it's going on. Essentially is what we're doing. Obviously, we're not using cell phones to shoot. But, I mean, it's so instantaneous now. With you being able to turn on, like with my phone, all I got to do is say, okay, Google, and then tell it, and it activates, and I tell it what to do, voice command-wise, and it does anything. I can say, I'm driving in my car. I'm kidding you not. I'm driving to my studio in Hollywood this morning, and I've got my phone bracketed on my dash. And I'm driving, I just go, and I thought of something I wanted to share. I go, okay, Google, and then I hear my phone respond to, tweet. And then I said what I wanted to tweet, send, and boom, it was done. I mean, and you can do, with the way you can do that stuff so quickly and easily now in an age of trying to keep things secret. And like, what JJ was able to do secrecy-wise on Cloverfield.
Yeah.
That ain't going to happen today.
Right. Especially now with Star Wars. Yeah.
No, especially with all the additional, eyes that are going to be prying on. You just can't do that today. Now, I think you're right. He will do better than most.
Right.
But pictures are going to come out. Somebody, and with the size of cast and crew you need on something like Star Wars over multiple countries, as opposed to probably the relatively smaller crew he did Cloverfield with.
Right.
There are more mouths you got to keep shut.
Yeah. It's a $200 million film.
Yeah. I mean, it's just too big.
Yeah.
But Paul, you raised the question, but how do you think they're going to be able to do this?
I think they need to actually embrace what they're obviously doing now is embrace some of it being official themselves, which was definitely our strategy back in episode 2 and 3 as well, which is, you know what, there's a lot of people who don't want to be spoiled, and there's a lot of people who, the mass majority of people just want tastes of this thing before they get it. So I think they're going to have enough media savvy people who get that. You know what? Let's put out enough official that it'll reduce some of the demand, because really that's all you can work on. Because the supply, if the demand is too high, the supply will be there. It's just going to be too hard to police.
He raises a great point, because we've been saying stuff like this in other areas, but you're absolutely right. And now, don't go as far as Spider-Man 2 did, but if you responsibly sit down and plan out, okay, this is when we're going to release this piece of music, and then this is going to be when we release this set photo, and this is going to be... If you do that, I think, Paul, you're right. You start to quench the thirst that people have for it.
Well, I think another thing to do, a good model to look at for them, and granted, not as big of scale as Star Wars, but still in a grand scale, was Inception. Inception was a movie that Nolan had just... The Dark Knight was done, and he was on the top, the king of the castle. And the fact that now Inception was coming, what is it? Nobody knew, and they knew who the cast was, they knew all this, what was going on, but no one. The most important thing that they have to hold is the story. That's the thing that they have to protect the most, because casting photos and stuff of that nature, people can speculate all day long, but it comes down to protect the story. That's what I want them to protect. I don't want to know anything about the story except maybe a quick synopsis. Oh, this might happen, cool, I can get my creative Star Wars brain thinking about what's going to happen, and then the trailer comes out. Give me the thing you and I talk about all the time is a good teaser, a good trailer 1, a good trailer 2, and then I'm done.
Yeah, that is going to be the key. All right, let's bring up the next big thing here that I know people are going to want to talk about, and I think this story is actually more significant than you think, because it must have been shortly after we did the last episode of Jedi Council that the first images from the set came out, and they're not of like in front of camera pictures. It was like, we see them moving some giant pieces out of warehouses. I believe they were in Abu Dhabi.
That's what it certainly seems like now.
Yeah, that they're out there putting these things together, and that's very cool. Now, some people say to me, might say, but John, like, who cares? We didn't see any of the stars in the film. We didn't actually see. It's just some crew opening a big door and dragging out some equipment. But here's why this is big, important, and majorly significant to me, and why I will probably always remember it. Because of this. For the past year, we have been living in the Star Wars is coming age. For a whole year now, we've been in this age of, who are they going to get to direct, and who are they going to get in the cast? Who's going to be writing? Oh, we've heard they've written it now. Now they brought a new writer. Oh, now we know some of the cast. We've been in this Star Wars is coming age. And that one picture that came out, that one picture signified and signaled off that we are now entering into the next age, which is they're making Star Wars.
Star Wars is here.
It's not a theoretical thing we're talking about anymore. This is actually happening as we sit here and speak about it. JJ and crew are out there actually shooting the new Star Wars movie right now. And when I saw that picture, that's the joygasm I got.
It's happening.
Because it's real. It's tangible now. It's happening. Anyway, like, what do you think about it?
I totally agree with you, but what also people don't realize too is that, and some not, like, I guarantee maybe most people in this board right now, or the three of us, won't feel this way, but some people are going to feel there's going to be a big Star Wars overload, because you forget that as we go forward into Episode 7, if they're going to, from what everyone said, they're going to release the spin-off movie now in 2016, so they got to start prepping that thing. That means the script is pretty much done. They haven't the reports on that movie are going to start coming out probably this year. We're going to hear more about that.
They have to.
It has to. So you're going to hear, there's going to be the spin-off movie, and then there's more, and then we're going to get our first trailer, then we're going to get the title. Like, there's going to be more and more. Starting from 2015, it's a Star Wars movie every year, so that means trailers and news and series and books. It's going to start. The wave starts very, very soon.
Paul, your feelings that you had as a Star Wars fan, or what significance or lack of significance you think there is when you first saw that picture, which, by the way, a lot of people speculate was an AT-AT foot. And okay, it was a big piece of round metal. So sure, it could have been.
It could have been.
Could have been. But anyway, Paul, when you saw these pictures coming out, what did you think or feel?
There's two main things. One was obviously, May 20th, 2003, when Episode 3 was screened for everyone. That was, to me, I thought I was never going to see a Star Wars movie again. Like, there was however you felt about it, you felt like, okay, well, this is done. We're never going to see another one again. So it's kind of like this weird, almost a miracle, like when you get a miracle cure coming in or something. It's like you just never thought this day was going to be here. It kind of is freaky. And then the other thing I thought was, this might be the last time there isn't a Star Wars movie in production for the rest of my life. Wow. Disney is theoretically going to.
Yeah.
Disney is theoretically going to milk this thing. Like if they do well, if it becomes a Marvel universe kind of a thing, there's theoretically going to be a film coming out every year for the rest of our lives. The era of these huge gaps where there's nothing happening with Star Wars might be done.
The dark times.
Mm-hmm.
The dark times, and so that's bittersweet in a way as well, right? Because something tastes a little better when you don't have it for a while. But those are my two thoughts, anyway.
All right, we're over a half hour into the show now, and I said we were going to have some time to take your Twitter questions and stuff like that. So make sure, once again, I'm going to bring up this Twitter thing again. Just tweet to us using that hashtag AMC Jedi Council. I'm going to assume some already have been coming in.
Yeah, a lot.
So send them in. But I got one more topic I want to talk about, and this is just a personal peeve of mine, just a personal thing I want to bring up. But I'm at the control panel, so I can do it if I want. Here's the thing. I want to talk for a minute, brothers and sisters, about the Ewoks. I want to talk about the Ewoks, okay? And really, I'm almost verbatim here, just going to be repeating something that I said on a video blog I did about 4 years ago. But I want to reiterate it here because I've heard this come up a couple more times. And so I just want to set the record straight here on the Ewoks. We all are in agreement that Star Wars is awesome. And the original trilogy, I think especially all of us agree that Star Wars is awesome. But there are many people in the Star Wars fan community who, while we acknowledge that, Star Wars is a 10, Empire is a 10, there are a lot of people out there who might say Return of the Jedi is a 9.
Sure.
And when I talk to these people about why would you say Return of the Jedi is a 9, which, by the way, is my personal favorite of all the Star Wars films. I love Jedi. What inevitably the conversation will at one point finally come to, and then there's the Ewoks. A lot of people say that the Ewoks were the foreboding darkness about the Jar Jar Binks to come, right? Mm-hmm. That it was the beginning of the end. But I cannot disagree more with that whole premise. All right, and I will tell you why. There's two major reasons here. Number one is the story hook that the Ewoks provided. Now, everyone here knows this, is that originally George wanted to have the original concept was have those as it was going to be a Tajik and was going to be Wookiees as opposed to Ewoks, but they went in a different direction. But here's what I believe it did story-wise and thematically was George wanted this whole thing of this juxtaposition between the technology era and the world of technology, if you will, and the world of nature. Mm-hmm. He wanted something like that of the advanced versus, the not so advanced versus the nature, man versus nature, if you will. And to me, the Ewoks played into that perfectly, especially when you see the big stormtrooper battle at the end and something like that. The Ewoks really did represent the natural world, as opposed to the invading force of the stormtroopers in the more technologically advanced world. Okay, that's fine and everything, but to me, what everybody seems to forget, everybody thinks of the Ewoks as these cute little cuddly things. These are vicious killers. We forget that. These are homicidal little pathological killers. Yeah. When we first meet them, it was, cool, we just caught Luke and Han, and we're about to carve you up, son, and we're going to eat you. That was what their goal was. And they weren't just going to be quick and nice about it. They weren't going to take Han and say, don't worry, we're going to drive the spear through your heart so you don't feel the horror that is about to come, because I'm about to roast your flesh over this open fire.
Look at the stormtrooper helmets everywhere at the end. What do they do with those heads?
I was going to say exactly. At the end of the film, we see the Ewoks with the heads of their fallen enemies pounding them as triumph drums, right? The Ewoks will F you up and then eat you. That has been my whole mantra about the Ewoks. Don't you be talking crap about the Ewoks, because they will mess you up and then they will eat you, because that's what these guys do. And guess what? You take their spear away, they'll find a way to kill you with rocks. Take away their rocks, they'll find a way to kill you with trees. They are trained assassin, cold-blooded killers. Don't be fooled by the fur. And I think just people lose that about them very often.
They're actually gonna,
I love the Ewoks.
They're actually going to appear in next week's Game of Thrones. They're
going to be Tyrion's champion against the Mountain.
I love Jedi, and Empire is still my favorite out of the three, but I don't dislike Jedi for that reason. I mean, I still would have. I still think they could have kept to the nature theme if they would have kept the Wookiees in there as well. I think I would have preferred to seen the Wookiees, but I don't think it takes away from Jedi to have them. Yeah, he wanted to sell toys. It doesn't matter. For me, it does go the little guy against the big guy, and how it was able to. The Stormtroopers are horrendous shots. I mean, they've been since this episode 4. But the fact that they lose to these little Care Bears the whole time, that you can make people go, huh? But again, Jedi to me was a great movie, and it doesn't. I agree with you. They are vicious little creatures, and I still want one for a pet.
Paul?
Well, yeah, no, obviously, I mean, part of the rationale was that Chewbacca then was established as the Wookiee, and he was way too technologically savvy to represent something versus technology. So that was part of it, obviously.
He fixes starships.
So you can't, and then we see where they go. There's something about the little guy versus the big guy, obviously. All I wanted to say, John, was that I don't know how much you played Battlefront or Battlefront 2, but playing as Ewoks is absolutely my favorite thing to go around and kill. So if you still have a copy of Battlefront and you haven't done that before, there's a certain joy in taking those spears and killing those guys. So I gotta agree with you, John. They're vicious.
All right. Well, okay. Thank you all for letting me get that off my chest. It is now time for us to go to you guys and throw over the show to you now. You will control the rest of the show. We're just going to take your comments and thoughts via Twitter. And once again, I'm going to bring this address up again. Just tweet us with the hashtag AMC Jedi Council. Kristian's monitoring the Twitter stream there. So, Kristian, what do we got over there?
I got some good ones, but when you were doing your whole Ewok rant, I forgot to say there's a lawsuit. I don't know if Paul heard this as well. Like, there's a lawsuit going on right now in London about the woman in charge of the extras. And in the report, it said something along the lines of where she's holding back on from the hundreds of extras she was supposed to include that will be playing Wookiees and Stormtroopers, is what it said in the report. Again, I don't know how accurate, or if they were saying along the lines that maybe they were just throwing that out there. Oh yeah, they're supposed to play this. Maybe they were speculating, but what it seemed was that it's possible. The fact that Stormtroopers was mentioned in there made
Where
me.
Where did the report come from?
It came from a pretty. I have to look. I got the initial report on StarWars7News.com. I think, and they quoted a pretty reliable source where it came from. It wasn't their report, but I remember looking at it. It was from the legal document that actually came in, that it was speculated that there's going to be Stormtroopers again. That to me made me go, huh. So
interesting. Just
something I wanted to. But yeah, all right. Our first tweet comes from @IamLeoSilver. Don't you think the Star Wars spin-offs are just a way to recoup the money used to buy Star Wars from George Lucas?
No, they're gonna recoup. Look, first of all, let's get this straight. I got to bring this up on AMC Movie Talk all the time.
Yeah.
Let's be very, very clear here. There is this romanticized, all the world is flower and rainbows idea about there that, no, just artists just like making movies because they love the art. No, every movie that has ever been made in history by a studio in Hollywood being put out in theaters has been made for the money. Why? Because it's a movie business. Now, you want to make them as good as you can. You want to make them as artistic as you can. You want to please the people and give them what they want, all that kind of stuff too. But the bottom line is every film ever made in history, with wide releases and things like that in mind, has been to make money. That's why they do it. Star Wars doesn't have to, or Disney, I should say, doesn't have to make the, what are we calling them? The spin-offs, I guess, is what we're generally calling them right now.
Yeah.
They don't need to make the spin-offs in order to recoup the money. They're going to recoup the money just on the main saga alone. But they're going to make these spin-offs because they're going to make more money. And hopefully they're good, and they're going to add to the overall fan enjoyment. And we as Star Wars fans are now, instead of having to wait 3 years for a new Star Wars movie, we're going to get a new Star Wars movie every year. And if they do it right, and if they do it well, and if they let Kennedy shepherd this whole thing the way they let Kevin Feige shepherd the whole Marvel universe. Look at the success they've had there. The way they're in charge of everything with Marvel, but they let their talented people do what they do, and they've been giving us great movies. If they do the same thing with Lucasfilm, then this is nothing but good news. But don't don't get caught into this whole thoughts like, do you think they're just making these ones for the money? They're making every one of them for the money. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when they realized they were going to recoup the money was when they said, "Hey, we're making new Star Wars movies in general." You know, because they knew it. They announced the deal. It was going to happen. But like you said, it's a matter. We should all be happy because of the creative team that is involved. Now, if you told me that the same people that were doing, like, you know, if Michael Bay, again, I use him always as the reference, but if Michael Bay, who got a hold of the Transformers, for me, that universe is just about the money. It's cool. It looks fun. You're going to have there's 4 movies of them, but it's all about just getting people in there during the summer and shelling out the cash, and you're going to have a fun, kind of meaningless action film, which is fine. But that's not the case with Star Wars, because like we said before, if they tie it in the same way they're doing, they own Marvel. So that's what they're going to do with Star Wars. They're going to connect this universe. They know what they have there. They know how big and rich and the religion behind the being a Jedi and the space battles and everything that they have. They have this universe they can just use and really make good storytelling with great directors that you can get attached. I'm still hoping, because David Lynch at one point worked at Lucasfilm. I'm hoping he comes back and makes a Boba Fett movie. That would be fun. The possibilities of people who can get involved, that's what the money will come with good product.
Paul?
I'm going to contrast this with, say, the X-Men franchise and the Spider-Man franchise, which belong at Sony and Fox, versus the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is owned by Disney. However you feel about some of the X-Men movies, X-Men 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2 or even Spider-Man 3, those were, some of us feel like Sony was just grabbing because they have to keep making movies to retain the rights. Like, we're going to lose the money if we don't make these movies, and those I think none of us want to see. But Disney bought this thing. They don't just hold the rights for whatever. They own it. Just like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they own. And I feel like they bought both of those things because they have a huge hole with boys. They have the Frozen audience, but they needed boys. And so I feel like they're, so far what I've seen, they are very deliberately and carefully and calculating, wanting to make this thing be a universe that lasts for a long, long time. I'm not worried about a quick money grab, say like Sony and Fox. I think they're building this to last forever, and they want theme parks, and you know this is going to be, our grandkids are now going to see Star Wars, which I wasn't sure of 5 years ago.
All right, what else we got in there?
This is a really good one. I want to get his Twitter handle right. It's at YasoH. Guys, please, I want to know the best way to watch Star Wars canon. I have no idea. I have never watched Star Wars before, but I want to. Which way should I watch it?
Well, first of all, I envy you.
Yeah.
I envy, because one of the things none of the Paul, Kristian, or I will never be able to do again ever is watch Star Wars for the first time.
Yep.
That experience is now gone for us. So I envy you. It's Star Wars, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. I mean, as far as these guys are going to give some different answers. To me, you start and you stop there. There's some cool books, and there's some certainly some cool segments of the Clone Wars, and there's certainly cool things out there and all that kind of stuff. My recommendation would be just watch episodes 4, 5, and 6, which is Star Wars: New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. That's how I do it. So, but someone's asking you that question. Yeah. How would you answer them?
I would start with 4, 5, and 6, then watch the Clone Wars series, and then watch episode 3. You can ignore 1 and 2, and I'm not even saying it for a joke. Like I just don't feel 1 and 2 really add much to the lore and everything. I feel that if you watch the Clone Wars, you'll get what Obi-Wan was talking about in episode. If you're from talking to someone who's never seen it before, there's a great scene in episode 4 when Obi-Wan is explaining to Luke who his father was. He was a great friend, a great pilot. If you watch, then you go back and you watch the Clone Wars series, you'll say that and go, oh, I totally understand what Obi-Wan was talking about there, because this is the type of guy he was describing. And then you can, if you want to watch the turn and what happens, how he ultimately becomes Darth Vader, that's why I think you end with episode 3. And then we might have different answers for you once again, talking overall canon, once these new novels, books, games and Rebel series comes out.
Right. Paul, what about you? How would you answer that?
Answer it the same way you guys did, assuming the person is over the age of 12. If the person is 12 years old or under, my honest answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then Clone Wars. If you are 12 year under, 4, 5, and 6 are a little boring for today's sensibilities, and without the hook of the other characters. I've seen it. I've seen kids watch it. can totally relate young Anakin. They don't. Some of the cheesy dialogue is forgiven. You know, the pod race is exciting. All that stuff happens. Then you buy into the characters, and they can handle the slower pace of 4, 5, and 6. But if you're over 12, definitely I can endorse the original trilogy plan and stop there.
And I should point out here that Kyle Newman, who was on episode 1 of this, he will be back. He's a little busy finishing his new movie right now, but he'll be back on. I know he is a prequel defender.
Wow.
So he would probably, just to make sure his voice is represented here, he would probably throw in the prequels a little bit more predominantly than the three of us have. Anyway, what's next on the Twitter sphere?
This is a question that I hope Paul has the answer for this, because I want to know myself. And at the McDougal Bugle, I definitely messed that up. Are the current Dark Horse comics that are still being published part of new canon? Because they're coming out now, and that would include the Darth Maul storyline.
Actually, I'm excited. Yeah, I kind of want to include this in our earlier topic, so I'm glad someone brought it up. The new Darth Maul comic is based on Clone Wars scripts that were actually developed for TV but never produced. So I've seen in the press releases that this is the new Dark Horse series, the new Darth Maul series, is canon.
Great.
Per association with the Clone Wars and the fact that it was written there. And so Lucasfilm has been okay for Dark Horse to say these are canon. They will be the last canon series that Dark Horse produces. And everything that came before that is not canon. It's all part of the Legends, the Legends series. However, the rumor that I just want to bring up, that not the rumor, but from the Diamond Distributor Summit meetings recently, Marvel had a slide up saying that they were going to, at Comic-Con of this year, be announcing 2 titles. And when everyone does the math backing up, it doesn't look like Dark Horse will be soliciting any new comics past September of this year. And if you look at the solicitation timing for comics in terms of when, if you announce something at Comic-Con, when it would come out, is around September. So what is rumored and what came up on the slide was that Marvel will be announcing 2 series, and the theory that they will be starting in September. And I just want to stick my neck out as what these 2 series will be. First will be a Rebels series. Disney loves to tie everything into their TV and property, so I guarantee they're going to want something that comes up with the TV they're putting out. So one of the series will be Rebels, and I believe the other series will just be called Star Wars. It'll be Star Wars #1, and it'll be set sometime. They'll do the math. Maybe it's a year maybe before the events of Episode 7, just to get us warmed up on the universe and feature some ancillary characters and maybe some walk-on and some new characters. So I'm sticking my neck out. Those are what I think the announcements are going to be at Comic-Con.
I like it. And now, help me if I'm wrong here. I also read that Marvel was going to be getting ready to announce their new Star Wars titles. Does that mean Dark Horse is done with Star Wars?
I believe so.
Yeah, Dark Horse's license, there was a press release came out, well, their license was technically to end at the end of 2014, and Marvel's was technically to start January 1st of 2015. That was a previous press release. I think they've just probably worked out some logistical deal to pay them off for 3 extra months. That it just works out because the Comic-Con announcement is just a little bit so juicy to be able to.
So
do
now,
something
cue the inevitable questions are going to be coming in. Well, wait a minute. Star Wars is going to be printed to Marvel. So does this mean we can see an Avengers Star Wars crossover?
Oh, I hope not.
Let's just end that speculation. No.
Yeah.
No.
I think a lot of people. I've gotten questions as far as, does that mean it'll blend with Guardians of the Galaxy? And again, the best way to answer that is you got to remember what it says in the beginning of every Star Wars movie a long time ago in a galaxy far away. So this happened a long time ago. It's not the same timeline.
No. They're going to be keeping these complete. All Patton Oswalt fantasy things on Parks and Recreation aside. It ain't gonna happen. All right, what else do we got?
This is a good one too, and I know that John, you've talked about this tons of time on AMC Movie Talk. This comes from at M18 Carranza. If Episode 7 comes out overseas a week before U.S. release, what will be the fan reaction, and do you think that's a bad move?
Screw fan reaction. What's my reaction going to be?
Right.
I'm going to burn the place down.
That's right. Well, Disney's been doing that.
Let me first of all, let me just say, I am not threatening arson on anybody. I am not actually literally going to burn anybody's house down. I will be pissed.
Yeah,
I will be so pissed. There ain't no way that I am not going to be present at the first public screening of this film. There's just no way.
Right.
They can't do that. Like I know Marvel has been doing that recently, But this is Star Wars, damn it.
Yeah.
You can't do that with Star Wars.
But why not? I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Because it's Star Wars, damn it.
I'm with you. I want it to come out tomorrow. But it looks like if you go with what they're doing with Marvel, I mean, Captain America they got before us.
I know.
You know, so it's like,
so let me get this straight. Captain America is not opening first in America.
Yeah.
I don't know, Paul. I mean, what has been the history? I'll be honest. I got to confess my ignorance here. What has been the history of their releasing schedule? And do you think it's possible they can actually release in foreign markets like a week before they open them here?
Well, a bit of history on episode 1. It rolled out throughout, took about 3 months from the time it opened May 19, 1999 here in the States, all the way through till it didn't come out in Italy, I think was the last country. I believe it was October. Episode 2 was a little bit closer. They shortened those windows. And then episode 3 was the first huge day and date. Now, obviously, there was a lot of logistical points about that because we didn't have digital at that point in time. So when George was making edits right up until, a couple days before, they couldn't physically make the prints and do the translations, all that kind of stuff. I just think Star Wars is too story-driven. The story and plot matters so much to everyone, much more than Captain America, where it was how did you feel and how it was an adventure. The story matters so much to everyone. I just think the backlash is going to be too huge. And then if JJ is holding back secrets, like what happened with Star Trek Into Darkness? I assume that didn't.
I can't.
I don't know, because here's the only reason, again, playing devil's advocate, is the fact that if you look, going back from what you said before, John, in regards to it's first and foremost a business.
Yes.
It seems to have been working for them, because look, they did that with the Avengers. Look at the Avengers numbers. They did it with Captain America. Look at the Captain America's number. And granted, it's because both those movies were pretty damn good. But let's say, again, this movie is pretty damn good, and they go ahead and release it beforehand, and it's worked, and their models worked, and they get the excitement even more here. I don't know.
Well, let's look at the opposite side of that coin, though, because you're right. You're absolutely right with what you're saying. But remember, Sony just tried that same strategy with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. They thought we can release it. I'm going to tell you right now, Sony believed in that film a lot. I had some conversations. Well, let's just say they really believed in the film. So they put it out in foreign markets first, and part of the idea was the insane positive buzz and whatever is going to spill over into the U.S., and then that way by the time it's opening in the U.S., you've already got people all around the world raving about it. Backfired. There wasn't, I mean, don't get me wrong, Amazing Spider-Man 2 made a lot of money opening weekend, but not as much as 6 months ago they thought it would have.
Right.
And so it can backfire. So it's a double-edged sword, really, when you're looking at it that way. But let's also think about this. This is Star Wars. You with a new Captain America film, because let's admit it, the first Captain America film wasn't widely beloved.
No,
I liked it. I think most people liked it, but it's nobody's favorite of the Marvel films, So you have to do whatever extra you can do to really get people hyped up for it. This is Star Wars. I don't know that there's anything you can do to make people more excited for this. Like by the time, look, not everybody's excited about it right now, but by the time that we're 2 or 3 months out from the movie coming out, this is going to be a cultural thing. Yeah. I just don't think it's needed. I don't know, Paul, do you think that, as a cheap marketing stunt, they would try to do it overseas first?
I think if they, let me put it this way, if they do that, that means they really believe in this thing, because the last thing they're going to want to do, as you said, was poison the water on this thing. The question will be, are they even let you guys do reviews? There's all that kind of stuff that comes into play. I remember in episode 2 and 3, though, I mean, part of it was the reverse marketing. It was like trying to keep expectations down because everyone's so insane about this thing. Like there'll be toys and meals, and I almost can imagine that it will be up to that fever pitch where it's kind of like, you know what, let's everyone be realistic about this thing.
All right, let's take the next question.
Can I ask? My engineer wanted me to ask this question on the show, and I'm glad that I did, because I forgot about it. And he wanted to ask if you can go back in time. And so the studio comes to you and said, John, Paul, you guys have the ultimate decision here. We're going to let J.J. Abrams either direct the film, or Oscar-winning director Ben Affleck could direct the episode 7.
Right.
Who would you take for episode 7 if you can go back in time? Do you stick with JJ, or would you go with Ben Affleck?
Ben Affleck is a better director. I think JJ's better suited, though, for episode 7. I think, you know, and early on when they announced it, I remember I did a video talking about these are some guys you can probably discount from directing Star Wars. And JJ was one of the guys I said, look, just don't even think JJ Abrams, right? But after they got him on, and I watched more of his stuff, and I really then I saw Star Trek Into Darkness, and I really liked it. Overall, I think Ben Affleck is a better. You'd be hard pressed to come up with an argument that JJ is a better director overall than Ben Affleck. You'd be hard, but that's a pretty high standard. But I do think now I've come around to believe that JJ is actually the right guy and the right fit. Now, would he have still been my number one pick to do it? Maybe not my number one, but he's definitely a guy that he's got me believing in him. And I think even if I could go back in time, I think I would stick with JJ because just it's the better fit, I think. What about you, Paul? Would you make that switch or would you keep it as it is?
I have to echo everything you said. I mean, Ben's an amazing director, and I would love to see him take on a spin-off. I would love to see him do that personal Obi-Wan story or whatever we might see, right? Because he's into character-driven, small world. You know, the world of Argo is not big. It's JJ is a world builder, and what we need now, we need to reset the plate. This is the first one out of the gates, and we need to reestablish what this universe is like, and we need to do all that stuff. I don't think that's where Ben was going to shine. I'm looking forward to him playing in this world, though. That'd be great.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see Affleck do some fantasy-ish kind of stuff because when he eventually directs the new Batman movies. But by the way, that's not official. We're just all kind of calling that's where it's going. But all right, what else do we got in there?
All right, let's see. So this is a good one. At William Parcell, if Episode 7 is universally hated like the prequels, how would that affect the plans for the spinoffs?
Well, you know, it's funny because we kind of had the same conversation in talking about, you know, the new Spider-Man film came out. The speculation, if the new Spider-Man sucks and it bombs, which it didn't bomb. So, but the question was, if it really bombs, what does that do for all these spin-off movies they have with Sinister Six and Venom and Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man 4? Here's the thing. Star Wars is still Star Wars. And let's say it did bomb horrendously. Like, let's say it made $250 million in the worldwide box office. And I can't help but chuckle by even suggesting that. But let's say it does. It's awful. Everybody hates it. And it bombs and all that kind of stuff. Number one, it's too late to do anything about it for the 2016 spinoff. Because by the time this movie comes out, they might even be approaching wrapping production on the first spinoff movies come out. So it's too late to do anything about that. It's probably already too late to do anything about Star Wars Episode 8. So we don't have to worry about that. I would like to think and hope that the guys at Disney, who are kind of now overseeing this whole thing, that if something does go horribly wrong with Star Wars Episode 7, if something does, and I don't think it will, but if something did go horribly wrong, that they're the types of guys who aren't going to go, well, screw what everybody else says. We made some money. We're going to keep the ship going in the same direction. I suspect that these are the types of guys that if something did go really wrong, they would say, okay, let's sit back. How do we fix this? And then continue on. Like I said, by then it's probably too late for the first spinoff movie, but they can correct the course for later stuff. I don't know, Paul, what do you think?
I think you're exactly right. I think what you'll never see is a reboot. I don't think you're ever going to see them decide, you know what, this is all broken, we're doing Fantastic Four on it, and we're going to remake Episode 4 gritty and, you know, with, you know, songs and the latest, you know, kids from the Disney lot. You're just... Fortunately, I think that we're safe from that, and that would obviously be worst case scenario. So, course correction, sure, that's likely. I'm hoping their plan is... I hope they believe well enough in their plan that they don't be too reactionary. But again, success versus critical acclaim is, as John mentioned, is a big difference.
Yeah.
I think for me, again, like Star Wars is also one of those phenomena. Whatever you say about the prequels, I saw Episode 1 6 times in the theater. I hate the movie, but yet I still saw it 6 times in the theater.
19.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
19 times I saw it in theater.
And you hate the movies, and because at the time it's probably you Kool-Aided it.
At the time I convinced myself that they were the most awesome things
you Kool-Aided
ever made.
it. Yeah.
I mean, I gave. You know, I had to remind somebody about this once. I gave every single Star Wars prequel a positive review coming out of Every single one.
And that's my point.
Every single one.
That's my point and that's also why they continued. They did and again, the first one, episode 7, literally could have Gary Busey talking for 2 hours to a Moss Rock. Like
I was drinking something.
You can see it. Oh, I believe I could be a Jedi backwards with socks on my face. And you think that during that time, it doesn't matter what happens there because it's Star Wars. You're going to shell out the money and you'll see it 12, 13, 14, 15 times, and that will continue to make them make more money, and that will also lead into the spin-off films. As far as quality goes, once you hit like episode 9 and people are like, these movies are not doing well critically, and it's starting to see the box office hit by episode 9, that's when they rethink it.
That's the key thing, because here's the quality of episode 7, even if it's horrible, being horrible is not going to affect the box office of episode 7. Now, if it's completely awesome and people want to go back 6 or 7 times and start spreading the word, it can make more money. But if the movie sucks, it's not going to hurt its box office.
No.
What it is going to do is hurt episode 8's box office. Because while I was fooling myself about the prequels, right? And I saw the first one 19 times in theaters. Paul, I was working at Satellite Studios at the time. And, every like inevitable, it was inevitable. Every afternoon, all of us in the office would look around each other and say, business meeting? Yeah, and business meeting was code for let's split, let's go to the theater and watch Phantom Menace again. Because we were a visual effects company and it was blowing us away. But even though I was still fooling myself and trying to convince myself that I liked them, I only ended up seeing the second one like 6 times in the theater.
That's still a lot.
But the third, and then by the time Revenge of the Sith came around, I saw it like twice in theater.
Sure, but even
so you see this effect.
But how many times did you see Neighbors in the theater?
I've seen Neighbors twice.
You have seen it.
I've seen Neighbors
twice. Normally go and repeat movies like at least once or twice.
If I like a movie, I will go see it several times.
So, but that's the thing is that repeat business. I agree with you that eventually, if the movies are not good quality, you're going to see a hit. Not enough of a hit to consider them a bomb. These movies, all three of them, will not bomb. This again, what they really are trying to do is get people back on board that Star Wars is the best thing out there because the prequels. Remember when the prequels came out, and then when the first one came out, everyone was like, "Oh, okay, this kind of is not that great." And then the Lord of the Rings came out, and Lord of the Rings buried it. The classic conversation in I guess Clerks 2 that Kevin Smith put out about Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars, and Star Wars fans wanted to fight that because the original trilogy is superior. But you can't fight it on the prequel to Lord of the Rings.
No, you cannot.
And so they want to get it back in the public. Like, this is the main stuff. Yeah, we have Marvel, and Marvel's is it right now, but Star Wars is back. That's what they're trying to accomplish. So they're going for quality.
Well, see, and people will say to me, well, it doesn't matter how good it is, because even if it's crap, it's going to make money. Yeah, but you know what Disney understands? They understand the Frozen principle, which is this. If it's good and people love it, you will make more money.
Yep.
And Disney is not about making money. Disney is about making more money.
Right. Yeah.
That's what they're all about. And that's why, this is a great time to quote, what was Michael Douglas's name in Wall Street?
Gordon Gekko.
Gordon Gekko.
Yep.
The immortal words of Gordon Gekko. This really does apply. In this situation, greed is good.
Yep.
Greed works. And I think the greed of Disney is what is really increasing the chances and their motivation to give us excellent product with this new Star Wars line, because they are sitting on a mountain of Nazi gold.
Right.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. Anyway, let's take one more. We're over an hour. Let's take one more question. We'll call it a day.
This is interesting. At Rich Silverwood says, do you guys think that Disney decided to do Guardians of the Galaxy so moviegoers will fall in love with with sci-fi again to get ready for Star Wars? It's a pretty interesting question. Because when the planning
it's an excellent question.
Yeah, when the planning was going on, you assume that they at that point they had Star Wars. It was in the works, or they had it. And then what's the next Marvel property? How about Guardians? It coincides with what we're doing with Star Wars, and it's interesting.
I don't know, because I don't know that a little to virtually non-existent as far as public awareness goes title like Guardians of the Galaxy is going to hype up people for Star Wars. If anything, I would almost suspect the opposite. Hey, you know when Guardians of the Galaxy might have a fighting chance? In the same era, within the same calendar year that we're going to be putting out a Star Wars movie.
Right.
But honestly, I don't think the two are connected. I really don't. It's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And I could totally see why you would raise it. I just don't think that's the case. Paul, what do you think?
I think you're exactly right. I think probably the purchase of Star Wars hurt the chances of Guardians of the Galaxy being made. In fact, it's probably a miracle that it happened. Guardians of the Galaxy, as you guys know, also already carries the problem that people don't understand that it's in the Marvel Universe, and they're trying to get that message across as well. Yeah, it's kind of like saying that we're going to have a ringette tournament to promote hockey. It feels maybe you could say it's connected, but it's not quite the same thing.
Yeah, I think it'll be an appetizer for Star Wars, which will again, I think is coincidence, a happy coincidence. The fact that now that it comes out and you have, like, I know, again, just listening to my friends who had watched. I didn't watch the Guardians trailer that came out yesterday because I don't want to see anymore.
Oh my God, you haven't seen the latest Guardians trailer?
I don't want to.
I'm gonna make you.
No, I don't know. You guys talked about it already.
No, I'm gonna make you.
I don't have to watch.
If you're gonna be on AMC Movie Talk talking about things going on in movies, you gotta watch the trailer. I'm gonna make you.
I don't want to see anymore though, too, because I really want to see it. But the fact that every person I talked to said, "Oh man, I've gotten hyped up for Star Wars now because of it." So it probably helped them strategy wise anyway, without them even maybe wanting to.
All right. Well, look, we could probably keep talking for another 3 or 4 hours, but
Yep.
we are over the hour mark, so it's time for us to wrap this installment up of AMC Jedi Council. Thank you to everybody in the chat board who's joining us today, and contrary to your beliefs, I have been keeping my eye on the chat board as you guys have been talking. A lot of people saying, John's not reading the chat board, he's too busy. No, I've got it open right here. I've been watching it. So thanks a lot for joining us. I want to thank, of course, first of all, joining us all the way from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, former director of Lucas Online, and of course, the co-founder of Red 5 Comics, Mr. Paul Enns. Paul, where can people find you? More importantly, where can people find your Red 5 stuff?
Best place is Twitter for both, at Red5Comics and at Paul Enns.
And of course, sitting beside Mr. Kristian Harloff. Kristian, where can people find you?
Well, if you want to listen to more Star Wars every Tuesday morning on Geek Nation, far, far away, and you can find me on Twitter at Kristian Harloff.
And you can find me on all the various social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, just at John Campia. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Don't forget, if you love movies, AMC Movie Talk every Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, or, we just put it up on YouTube afterwards as well. Speaking of YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our AMC Theaters YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date not only on all the episodes of AMC Jedi Council, but also AMC Versus, AMC Movie Talk, AMC Mailbag. We got a lot of different types of shows, just movie talk all the time. And hey, listen, lots of great films playing in AMC Theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and your movie ticket information. So, for Paul Enns, Kristian Harloff, and myself, thanks for joining us in this episode of AMC Jedi Council. Don't forget, we will be back again next week. Remember, we do the show live on Tuesday afternoons, but then we put it up on YouTube on Wednesday evening, so keep that in mind. So thanks for joining us, guys. Until next time, my name is John Campia for AMC Movie News. Bye-bye.